And good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm mostly good.
Mostly good.
Mostly good.
Mostly good is
a lot going on.
That's more good than not, I suppose.
Yeah, it's I can't decide whether to be summer in short sleeves or be fall and winter in a sweater, so I did both today.
I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
It's one of those days.
It's as close as we get,
Yeah.
you know, and I still didn't even wear a jacket in. But it's one of those things where it's like our winters are mild, that's why we're here.
They are mild.
But I want to wear winter clothing just to mix things
Get
up.
some wind once in a while.
Yeah.
Makes a sweater
So
fun.
So this year
to
I ended
have.
up buying some sweater vests like this, so that when it's not cold,
It's a sweater vest year, then.
yeah, I bought several colors.
Yeah.
I even
Yeah.
have a dark forest green for Advent and Christmas.
We should do like some kind of collectible that like they can kind of match and see if they get all the colors.
All the colors I own.
Yeah.
And I have more than
And-
that, so
and,
I'm not going to say anymore.
We could sell some merchandise that has little,
Well,
cutouts.
it could be like a
put
bingo
on it.
card.
Bingo card, yes, that's what I'm thinking about.
And I think here it is.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
put this up. If you get all the colors of the sweaters I wear, free cup of soup.
A free cup of soup.
Yeah, Linda's always got soup going.
She does have soup going.
Yeah.
So as long as you're able to come down, to the church.
And you get all the colors of my sweaters over
and
the
you
next
get all
month.
the sweaters. Linda will check those cards.
Yeah,
though.
she will. We'll
Yeah.
stamp them.
Yeah.
And the reason I think about that is at my favorite grocery store in Sausalito, Molly Stone's was the name of the local.
Molly Stones.
And so we go into Molly Stone's, and they had a soup club.
Okay.
So they always had fresh soup every day, different types. And
Fresh soup is good.
yeah, so when you didn't want to cook, you go down there and you get a couple of vats of soup, actually cups, little bowls,
Little bowls.
and
Okay.
and you pull out your soup card. They stamp it, and after I forget if it was like 10 or something, you get a free soup.
Mm-hmm.
So why not sweaters and soup?
Why not sweaters and soup?
We better alert Linda that there's lots of free soup going to be handed out soon. But only if you watch this broadcast.
That's right.
Nobody else knows about this. This is exclusive content.
Exclusive sweater and soup.
Sweater and soup content. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. So that's good too. So I mean, we've been through a lot as a nation over the last 2 days,
Yes, we have.
and national election, hopes and expectations on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
and as things unfold, there are always winners and losers.
We've been talking about.
We've been
winners
talking
and
about
losers.
that, and how do you frame that from whatever side you're on, right?
Right. There's a
and-
lot of people with a lot of different feelings.
Yeah,
In these days.
and also there's a lot of gloating, which happens, and a lot of joy and happiness on one side and a lot of sadness on the other, and that's a hard thing. My wife actually wrote about. I don't know if you saw what my wife wrote on
No,
Facebook.
I haven't seen. What
She
put.
said, pastors, and she included, you too in this, is, we walk that middle line, that middle road on all of this, and that's our calling. And she's like, that's a heavy load to carry, and it is, right?
Yeah.
It is, and so when we think about how to caregive to anybody, it is, this opportunity to be with people who are struggling. And less so if someone is content with something, you don't necessarily need to add extra care because they're content or satisfied or whatever for anything, right? It's
Jesus went to the broken.
The broken,
yeah, and
right?
people who are feeling broken by the world.
that's right.
Yeah.
And so when I think about 2 days after national elections, some folks are really struggling. My heart goes out, and I was just looking online, and I found this poem on the word disappointment, and I want to share it. And it's not like a poem like rhyme kind of poem,
Okay.
but more like prose, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And it was written by a young lady by the name of Destiny when she was 19. And this was, so it wasn't, she didn't just write this. I found this. She wrote it a few years ago. And it kind of struck me of a 19-year-old who is so deep in thinking about disappointment. And so I want to share this poem today because we all have moments of disappointment, whether it's right now or in the future or in the past. We all know what disappointment is. And I thought this was very poignant and enough so that I wanted to share it with you. So this is the poem Disappointment by Destiny. Disappointment hurts more than anything. Actually, no, scratch that. Feeling like a disappointment hurts more than anything. Honestly, I feel like my whole life is a disappointment. But not because of me, but because of life in general. Life isn't fair, nor will it ever be. Miracles happen, but you have to have your eyes open to see them. My eyes have been forced shut, forcibly shut by society. A society that no longer has faith, None. But me, I have faith. And I've read that the smallest faith will move mountains. But the mountain in front of me is disappointment.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's some depth there.
There is, and it's something that feeling that there are. I mean, it's disappointment is obviously a universal feeling that
Yeah, right.
everybody has that.
Depending on experiences, yeah.
Yeah, and it is something that the depth of that when somebody can actually verbalize a little bit of what's going on and consider
Yeah.
what's going on in their lives. I mean, it's such a powerful moment. I know it's sitting with people, whoever they may be. I'm thinking of people in like younger people, youth group age, and how much
Struggle they have.
disappointment can
Mhm.
just lead them like against a brick wall, or
Yeah.
the hurts, the pains, the
Well,
whatever
it was
might
that
be.
line.
Um,
It says, faith can move mountains, but the mountain in front of me is disappointment.
yeah, and she's just expressing that line
Yeah.
of she's not giving up, but she doesn't know the way forward.
Doesn't know the way forward.
Yeah.
And so, for folks who are in the midst of disappointment, I, we're here, and we'll always be here. And on Tuesday, afternoon, we were together, and the thing that I said to everybody who tuned in then was, we're going to be the same church on Wednesday and Thursday and moving forward that we were on Monday and Tuesday. That our values don't change, that we're going to be about being authentic, we're going to be about inclusivity, and in that inclusivity, we can say all are welcome, as long as you don't want to hate, that we live in radical grace, and that we're going to try to continue on that path of growing closer to Jesus, that inspired growth. And so, for anybody looking for a place to hang their hat or a place to find their bearing or their footing, we're still the same church as we were last week.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change. And, we're still going to be a place that is firm about and very clear about what we believe, and that we still look to Jesus for all things. And I don't know how many times I've said this in a sermon, at any election time, but our Savior does not come from Washington, D.C. I've said that when different parties have been in power, controlling the government. Doesn't matter who it is. Our Savior comes from heaven, and that's where our citizenship is. Paul says that. And if you're looking for someone to fix your problems other than to Jesus, you will always be disappointed, regardless of political party.
I think that's just a important perspective.
Yep.
Going forward, and yeah, what matters most is always the love that we share.
That's right. Change begins with us.
Yeah, and that's always going to, over whatever political background you have. I mean, what
Yep.
we need to always focus on is the love that we share.
And part of that is having an eternal perspective. A worldly mindset for all things is always about working the angles. An eternal mindset says there's something more, and that something more is better and more real than what's in front of us. And it's hard to believe that, but it's true. And so some of us work at keeping a mindset of what is eternal versus what is temporary, and not to get caught in the temporary rat race that will lead to extreme joys and extreme disappointment, where an eternal perspective, one is working towards being completely fulfilled and filled and content with what God is up to, what Jesus is up to in life. And so my mindset, which is the same mindset as a week ago as it will be next year, is all about thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth
Yep.
as it is in heaven. And Washington can't legislate that in 2024, nor can they legislate that in 2025. That is something that God is working within us, and that I'm more concerned about the rule of the kingdom than I am other things. And that's where I got to keep my perspective. And doesn't change. See, and that's the thing, is you also get the same preaching moving forward, either way. And so that's you know, if you need some consistency in your life, the consistency you will find here, because we're going to keep pointing to Jesus for all things. Whether one is joyful or full of disappointment, we're still going to be pointing to Jesus.
Yeah. Point to God's grace.
Yep.
Point to God's
Yep.
love. And
And at the same time, I will not hesitate to point out the sin of cruelty if it creeps up or pops up. Because
it always does.
there's no room for cruelty in God's kingdom. There's no room for cruelty within God's people. And so if I see it,
And that always requires prophets to step up.
yep,
and speak that.
and so if I see it, I'm gonna call it out. And but that's no different than me calling out stuff other times too. But let's not let's be clear about that too. So
Yeah.
we want to go back to this week. We've did a song from the choir concert earlier this week that we heard on Sunday.
Yeah.
But today we're going to hear a song that was only heard at the choir concert. And a dear friend of many on our music staff and sang this song, and just guilt by association, I get to call her a friend too, just because she's friends with the music staff.
And she's so friendly.
And
when you
she's
talk to
friendly.
her, she's so friendly. Yeah.
And she didn't say, "Who are you again?" the last when I saw her on Saturday. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that equals friendship.
It does.
But we're
Yeah.
close friends.
Yeah. Well, and she does honestly make you feel that way when you
Yeah.
talk to her. Yeah.
So Nicole Pryor is a wonderful human being, a special person, and every so often when she is asked to do something here at Community Lutheran Church, she says yes.
Yes, she does.
And so today we're going to hear a Keith Thompson original that dates back to right around 2012. And so this was at the, not Christmas, the All Saints concert. And we want you to take a listen and just rest in the melody and the lyrics. Enjoy.
All right.
The journey begins with such promise of the joys that tomorrow may bring, with hope and with pride that we know deep inside, and the beautiful songs we sing. The journey belongs to the children as we reach for the stars and the moon. But the journey must end. We will never know when. All we know is it ends much too soon. stillness. Your laughter still rings in my ears. When I close my eyes, I can still hear your cries as I wipe away your tears. Your life was a gift of such goodness that so swiftly was taken away. But when my journey's done, we will walk in the sun, and I promise that until that day, I'll keep your face in my memories. I'll keep your name on my tongue. In my mind's eye, with the angels you'll fly, and you are forever young. I'll hide you here in my sorrow, for I know I will hold you again. So I'll keep your light burning strong, burning bright till then, until my own journey's
Well, that was okay.
Yeah, it was. That
Wow.
was really good.
Right?
Wow.
Wow, wow, wow. So as I said, that's a Keith Thompson original, and if you heard the lyrics, it's so deep about loss and the grief that's accompanying such deep loss. But it was written. I'm okay to share this, right? Okay. Written in response to the murders at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Massachusetts back in 2012. And this is a response to that. And in some ways, not only an outpouring of emotion into music, but it's also a reminder of that eternal perspective, because there is hope in the midst of that grief. I know. I mean, when you hear, you know, things like, you know, knowing that I will hold you again, I'll hide you here in my sorrow. I know I'll hold you here again. So I'll keep your light burning strong, burning bright till then, until my own journey's end.
Yeah, some of the lines are really, yeah, you can really feel it when you know that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the midst of gut-wrenching grief, there's also an element of hope. And in some ways, I see in this song an element of Keith Thompson's faith. Whether he'd admit it or not, because he's a very private person, and God, I hope he's not watching. I see an element of his faith shining through, that those are not empty words of what he believes. And that strengthens me to hear somebody else speak words of hope when
It's a hopeful song.
Yeah.
As much as it's about disappointment.
as it
it's
is
hopeful.
as it is about disappointment. And so I deeply appreciate the heart that poured these words out, because there's a lot going on there. And so just beautiful, just beautiful. And I feel the pain in that too,
Yeah.
in that song. So some verses to reflect kind of off of that is, I was thinking about that line about hiding your, let me just find it here. I'll keep your face in my memory, and I'll keep your name on my tongue. In other words, I'm going to hide that within me, that part of someone we love, And I was thinking about Psalm 17, and it's not one that is used all that often, but it immediately jumped out at me. I was thinking about this psalm.
Okay.
And you might go, oh yeah, I know a little bit of this. So Psalm 17, 8, 9, but also verse 14, where the psalmist says, keep me, God, as the apple of your eye, and hide me in the shadow of your wings. And I really like that. God, don't forget me. Keep me.
That imagery, I mean,
Yeah,
that
the
sticks
apple
around
of your eye.
in just, secular society. That imagery sticks around.
That's right. And hide me in the shadow of your wings from the wicked who assail me, from my mortal enemies who surround me. And I love this. This is verse 14. Listen to this. O Lord, by your hand, save me from such people, from people of this world whose reward is in this life. Oh, it's like talking about eternal perspective versus a worldly perspective.
Yeah.
Like as a person of faith, you go, oh man, people who have a worldly perspective. And unfortunately, there are people who claim to be Christian, have nothing but a worldly perspective. And the psalmist is like, save me from the people who are only about this world. In other words, who are going to get their reward in this life. That's all they're worried about.
Yeah.
They don't have an eternal perspective. And Lord, protect me from people who are all about only winning and losing.
Yeah.
Earthly perspectives. Keep me away from such people. Protect me from those whose reward is in this life, because that's all they're thinking about. I don't know. Did we talk about this? But just you can stop me if you're like, no, we talked about this last week. For years, I struggled with the Bible verse when Jesus said, not everybody who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of God. Did we talk about this in here?
No,
Okay.
but it is one of those very fascinating Bible verses. Yeah.
And so it finally clicked for me in the last couple of weeks that Jesus was like really kind of dissecting to a fine point that there are people who use his name for their own benefit. I'm a Christian, or I'm I'm a churchgoer, or blah blah blah, but the rest of their life does not reflect the Christian walk. And there may be, in quotes, a belief in that there's a God, but there's no faith. There's no trust in that God, right? And it finally clicked, like, oh yeah, there are people who just make these empty claims about, I'm a Christian and, blah, 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 and they use that to their benefit. And Jesus, like, not everybody who says, Lord, Lord, is going to enter the kingdom. So it isn't aimed at people who, and this is a standard response I give to other people. If you're worried about that, then you're not in that group. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, people who worry about those things, you're not in that group. Like, for example, the only unforgivable sin is blaspheming the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And invariably, anybody who's like, I'm worried that I might have done that, I'm like, if you're worried about it, then you didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the people who don't care those are the people who should be worried about such things, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, this whole idea of, protect me from people of this world whose reward is in this life. Whether they're people of faith or not, they're people who are only about getting theirs and getting one over on somebody else today, right?
Yeah.
And so I really love that idea of keep me in the apple of your eye and hide me in the shadow of your wings. That's an eternal perspective, and that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
And when life has the mountain of disappointment in front of me, I have to keep reminding myself that. Right?
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Right. We all find times where disappointment gets the best of us. And because this world does. Like, this world can be, has a lot of cruelty out there.
Yep.
And yeah.
Now this next verse, I was thinking about that line in the song about I'll keep your face in my memory and how important memories are to us. In the sense that memories can give us strength and memories can encourage us. And in the letter, 1 Thessalonians, which, by the way, is the oldest writing of the New Testament. I want to share that. Anytime we have a read, I'm like, don't forget, like, before anything else was written in the New Testament,
Yeah, this letter was sent.
this letter was the oldest thing. And Paul is writing a letter to the church of Thessalonica, and he's reflecting on kind of the back and forth communication that is happening while he's not there. So, and it's right there in chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Yeah.
But Timothy has just now come to us from you and has brought good news about your faith and love. He has told us that you always have pleasant memories of us and that you long to see us just as we long to see you. Therefore, brothers and sisters, in all our distress and persecution, we were encouraged about you because of your faith.
So did you hear that? Pleasant memories. I mean, this is a very personal moment in that letter. I sent Timothy, which was kind of his protege. He's like, I sent him to you, brought you a letter, and now he has just gotten back here, so I'm writing you another letter, right? And he's like, you guys, he was talking about your faith and love, and that testimony of faithful people here is encouraging Paul. And he's like, and then Timothy told me, like, you all have pleasant memories of when we were there together. And so all of this serves as encouragement. And so the memories of faithful people, whether living or past, can be encouragement for us.
Yeah, and it doesn't always happen at once. I mean, sometimes at first those memories are just, they're so hard
Yeah, they're
to deal with
painful.
that emotion. And
Yeah.
But there can be a moment after time where you're looking back and you're just experiencing the joy that's there too. And then you have that joy in keeping their memory, sharing that,
Yep.
the gifts that they offered, keeping that alive.
That's exactly right. Therefore, brothers and sisters, in all of our distress and persecution, you could read the word disappointment there, we were encouraged about you because of your faith. In other words, those memories and those stories can strengthen us.
Yeah.
And I think about not even just necessarily people who've gone before, but good memories of folks that we're just not in contact with as much. Remember when we did this, and that serves to encourage. So it's good to tell stories
It
and
is.
remember things, because that will change your disposition and strengthen you when you think about that. Now, if you're having a memory about someone who's still living, then the next step is to reach out to them and say, hey, I was thinking about you the other day.
Yeah.
And so
Don't wait on it.
don't wait
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
Just make that and reach out. And kind of the last word today before we wrap up today, a reminder about moving forward. And this comes from Psalm 30, which has a different perspective because it's a psalm, therefore, Old Testament understanding. In other words, we as Christians see things a little differently than ancient Judaism that was practiced. And so, but I want to read it to you anyways. So, Psalm 30, verse 5, for God's anger lasts for a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may remain for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. So it's a full acknowledgement of the range of experience. And they certainly understood back then, we farther along, kind of different belief system, but way back then, and Judaism today doesn't even necessarily reflect that same belief. So in other words, it's an evolution of belief and understanding of God is they saw everything as quid pro quo. If something bad happened, well, God did
Yes.
it, right?
Yeah, and we always have to, there's no perfect words to describe this, the world we live in. You
That's
know,
right.
we have to use these
But it was all
metaphors,
cause and
looking at
it was
Yeah.
all cause and effect.
And-
So
and
something
yeah.
bad happened. So they're like, yeah. God's anger lasts for a moment. Something bad happened, and they would just attribute it to God.
Yeah.
We say Jesus doesn't cause bad things to happen to people. That's
Yeah.
just not in his makeup as God, because God is love. But anyways, they understood that way. But he's like, but look, even if it's a moment, God's favor lasts a lifetime. And for those in the land of disappointment or that mountain in front of them, weeping remains for a night, but rejoicing, joy comes in the morning. And that's always the promise because God always gets the last word. And we have to wait. Sometimes we have to wait for that joy.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not immediate, but know that God is there and God is here.
Absolutely.
So we hope you join us this weekend, by the way, because we're starting a short sermon series. We only have 3 weeks between here and culminating in Christ the King Sunday.
And then we're on to Advent.
We're on to Advent. I mean, that's how close we are towards the end of the year.
We are close.
So, new sermon series, we're going to talk about that God is in charge. That God is, and we're going to use a big word, God is sovereign. And to come to that realization should cause some gratitude in our lives as a reflection or a response to that. So we're going to talk about how God is in charge in our lives and in the world. And we got 3 different stories between now and Christ the King Sunday where the power of God kind of meets up with earthly power or earthly rule and the responses within that come from God that I think are really helpful for us in this time. So we're going to start this little series on God is in charge, and we hope you can join us, whether it's Saturday night at 5 o'clock or Sunday morning, 8, 9:30, or 11. We'd love to see you in person or online. But until we see you on Saturday, God bless you. We love you. Take care. And Philip, would you play us out?